NBA Showtime, NBA on NBC on the Game Boy Color. It is a 2v2 basketball game released by Midway in the year 2000 in North America. You control one player and the other player on your team is controlled by a bot, but you can give him some commands. If you have the ball, you can pass or shoot. Based on speed and distance, your player will dunk the ball when shooting. Without the ball, you can tackle and do a jump block. There are 3 modes. Season, which lets you play a full season against other teams, but you have to win every game, saved by a password system. Exhibition, which lets you play a single match against a CPU on different courts. And playoffs that are a tournament. For the Game Boy Color, the graphics are very good. The sprites look good, it's very colorful, and the UI is clean. Putting the remaining time of the court in the background was a good idea to keep the screen clear. I like that the logo of the home team is on the court. The music, on the other hand, is getting old very quickly. There's more or less just one track that plays all the time. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is lacking depth. There's just not much to do. The game modes are basically all the same and not many possibilities in the match. Mostly you sprint, you can do that by holding the start button, to the other side and just dunk the ball in. The different courses like Street and the Jungle are a nice addition, but it's just a reskin. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Overall I was bored quickly, but it looks beautiful, it has a lot of different dunking animation which is nice, and if you're a basketball fan you might have some fun with it. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Croc 2. Croc 2 is a Zelda-like puzzle adventure game with some jump and run elements, made by Argonaut Software and published by Fox Interactive. The game was released in Europe and North America in 2001 and is a sequel to Croc 1. In the game you can play as a crocodile that can jump and do a spin attack. The story of the game is that Croc is looking for his mother. The story is not relevant and the levels in the game have not much to do with the overall story. In every level you solve some problem that the people of the hub world have. There are 4 hub worlds with different settings, and in every hub world there are 3 small levels that you can do in any order and a boss fight. In the levels you need to collect all the gems to see the real ending. I didn't do that. For saving the game, it is using a password system. The presentation is fine, the sprites are big and have nice colors. The 4 different worlds all have a distinctive look. Sadly, the small levels inside of one world all looks mostly the same. There's also not much variety when it comes to sprite of NPCs. Different hub worlds all have their own color scheme, but that's about it. Not much more to say about the graphic. It is okay, and the sound is also okay. Every world has a theme, and during my playthrough I was not so annoyed by the music that I would turn it off. The gameplay on the other hand is having a lot of problems. While the controls are fine, the puzzles are uncreative and repetitive. There are basically 4 puzzles: pushing blocks, pushing buttons in the same order as a light, mathematical equations, and mazes with the solution as a text block in the beginning. Most of the time I was just running around with no orientation on the level and did the puzzles without thinking about what solving the riddle would actually bring. There are just 2 types of enemies, one that is shooting at you and one that is charging at you. The 2 types look a little bit different in each world, but that's it. The 4 bosses are also nothing special, and the last boss is even recycling the mechanic of the first. Additionally, there can be very tight jumps in the levels that are difficult to see. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I saw an IGN review of the game with a score of 8 and I really don't agree. It has boring levels, boring puzzles, and the only challenge in the level is to find the right way. Deja Vu 1 and 2, the Casebooks of Ace Harding. This is a point-and-click collection and a remake of 2 NES games. Made by ICOM Simulations and published by Mindscape and Kemco. In the USA and Japan the game released in the end of 1999 and in Europe in 2000. In the game you play as Ace Harding, a private detective that, in the first game, lost his memories and trying to find out who he is, who did it and why. The story takes place in Chicago in 1942 and is a typical detective investigator story. The presentation is fine. I like the music and the graphics are good too. Everything is clearly recognizable. Nothing special to say about the graphics, but I think for a point-and-click game on the Game Boy Color the graphics are doing the job quite well. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. Gameplay can be a bit tedious. All the time you need to switch between the different commands to open doors and to move through them. A lot of items are containers with more items in them that you have to open and then take the items from the item. That's unnecessarily exhausting. Besides that, the controls work fine and the riddles in the game are possible to solve. Sometimes a little bit easy and sometimes I had no idea what to do without a guide, especially shooting logs with a gun. You can easily die or get arrested depending on where you go or what you do. That can feel a bit cheap sometimes, but in that case you can always go one screen back if you hit continue. The game has a battery save for multiple save games. You can get stuck if you have no money to pay the taxi drivers, so be careful about that. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you like classic point-and-click adventures. I think that kind of game aged not as good as other genres. If you like classic point-and-click games, then these 2 games might be something for you. Overall, I give the game 3 out of 5 points. Hello Kitty No Happy House on the Game Boy Color. This game released on the 2nd of March 2002 exclusively in Japan, published by MTO. There's no translation patch and I don't speak Japanese, but I think I understood what the game is about. It is a virtual dollhouse kind of game. You see the Hello Kitty running around in a house doing different animations. You can interact with Kitty and with various objects in the house. There's 3 different minigames: sorting books, taking care of plants, and catching apples. Then minigames can be played in 3 difficulties and you get points for them, which unlocks new furniture that you can place around the house. The furniture placement is very limited. There are 5 slots in which you can only put certain things. The presentation is fine. The kitty sprite is big and the animations are recognizable. The music is also upbeat and at least in my 30-minute playtime not too annoying. While the sprite looks fine, there's just not much to see in the game. There are only still images of interactions with different characters. There's just a kitty sprite running around the house and that's it. The house itself is also not very big and kind of boring. I give the presentation a 2 out of 5. There is not much in terms of gameplay. There are 3 minigames and besides that, it is watching Kitty run around and doing mostly nothing. I understand that there's a market for that kind of game and the target audience were clearly children, but still, just 3 minigames? That is low. Maybe there are more if you play more, but I doubt it. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I see no reason for anyone to play that game. Even if you speak Japanese and you're a big Hello Kitty fan, I don't think the game is worth your time. There's nothing to do. I agree with the title of the game, Hello Kitty No Happy House. Second Space on the original Game Boy. This game released in 1993 in Asia and was made by the Chinese company Sachen. This game is an unlicensed Game Boy game. The genre of the game is hard to describe. I would call it a Pac-Man clone. You play as a car, the levels have white blocks and black blocks. On the black blocks you can drive, which makes them grey. If all the black blocks around such a white block are grey, the white block transforms in a game-pausing animation to a background image. That's it, you can just move around. There are 2 different speed settings to make the game more interesting. Every 5 stages you get the great reward of seeing the background image complete, and you get a different background image and a new background track. The presentation of the game sucks. There are mostly different colored blocks and nothing more. In the start screen I thought my Game Boy broke. The music can be a bit annoying and there's just one background image that changes all 5 stages is low. At least the enemies have different sprites. I'll give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is not really there. The game is a bad Pac-Man clone. The enemies are boring and you just drive around, and for what? To see the same background image that you already saw parts of for 5 stages runtime completely. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is barely a game. I get why that didn't get licensed. It sucks. I give the game overall 1 of 5 points because it is working. B-Rally Championship Edition on the original Game Boy. This game is a port of PlayStation 1 game, was developed by Vilas in Dubai, and released exclusively in Europe in 1998. B-Rally is a racing game. You always start at position 10, and if you're doing good at dodging the obstacles that spawn beneath and sometimes on the street, you will catch up to the other cars and make your way to position 1. The game features 4 playable cars with different stats and 10 maps. The maps have different streets, background images and obstacles. Some tracks even have special weather. In England, for example, it rains. There are 2 modes, Arcade and Championship. In the Arcade mode, you play in every level a few different tracks and you need to survive by reaching certain checkpoints before your time runs out. If you pass, you unlock the next level. To save, the game uses a password system. In the Championship mode, you play different tracks and you get points depending on your position and your time. The game looks great. In the selection screens, the cars rotate and have a 3D look to them. The tracks all look nice and have unique obstacles. Tracks even have little mountains to go up. You can do jumps and have an accident with an animation. We are talking about the original Game Boy. For that console, the graphics are perfect. The background music in the menu is nice, but sadly there's no background music during the driving. I give the presentation 4.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very arcade-like. You try to take the curves good and avoid the obstacles without losing speed, and from time to time you pass a car. If you have an accident, most likely the other car will overtake you again. The maps and cars all feel a bit different from each other, and the game's a lot of fun. The other cars feel more like obstacles and checkpoints and not really like other drivers, but that is often the case in such arcade races. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Woo! This game is getting everything out of the hardware of the Game Boy. Try it, it's a lot of fun. If you're missing the colors, then try the Game Boy Color version. We didn't review it yet, but I'm sure we will somewhere, when the lucky wheel decides so. Konjiki no Gashbell, Yujo no Sakaru Dream Tech Tournament on the Game Boy Advance. The game is based on the manga Gashbell. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. I don't know the manga, the game's in Japanese, and there was no translation pledge, so I will only review the game based on what I see. The game is a typical fighting game with a tech mechanic. You choose 2 fighters in the beginning. There are actually 2 modes how to play the game. A single fighter mode where you select one of your 2 fighters and fight with him all rounds, and a 2 fighter mode where you can choose which fighter you want to have in each round. In the single fighter mode you can customize a character with 3 points that you can put into attack, defense or special moves. Fighters can do basic combo, different special moves, 2 assist, 1 per character and 1 based on the partner, and an ultimate move. There are a lot of fighters and stages to unlock. The game looks nice. It has a clean style with good looking sprites and nice backgrounds. The moves look mostly good and the ultimate attacks have a cool start animation. Sometimes the background can look a little bit too much like just a picture. Not in every background is a lot going on and the background characters don't react to what's happening. The fights that happen in the foreground can feel a bit out of place. The music feels like typical anime music, but it's not bad. Many fighters are little children, which maybe makes sense as a manga, but for characters in a fighting game it wouldn't be my first choice. But there's quite some variety in the fighters. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The game feels a bit slow and there's just one basic combination. The Game Boy Advance just has 2 face buttons and one is used for jumping, so there's just one other for the basic combination. The timing when you press the attack button can prolong the combination a bit, and you can sometimes change the combination with special attacks or assist, but it's still just one basic combination. Besides that, the fighting feels good and is fun. The customization before a fight is a fun idea. There are also little mini games in the arcade mode to bring a bit variety. I give the gameplay 3.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you're a fan of the manga and or speak Japanese. I think without the connection to the manga and the language, there are better alternatives on the Game Boy Advance. Gives the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Carrera Power Slide on the Game Boy Advance. This game was made by Tiertex Design Studios and released 2003 exclusively in Europe. It is a Carrera racing game. In the game there are different modes to play. In the season mode you earn money and you can upgrade your cars and buy new ones. In time attack you can try to get the best time against the ghosts of your last rounds, and in create a track you can create a track. The game is an authentic Carrera experience, which means that the only controls you have is pressing A to speed up. If you have too much speed, you fly out of the curves. The presentation is bad. It starts with a boring intro and it just gets worse from there. The game itself is in a top-down view, which makes sense. The cars and all the other assets are not looking very good. I don't know what happened to the 3, 2, 1 icons before the race starts. They look cheap, like they were made in paint. There's no background music during the racing at all. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is pressing A long enough to have good speed, but not too long to not fly out of the curves. This is literally a Mario Party minigame and not a good one. The boards fly out of the curves all the time, and even in the demo scene no one is patient enough to drive slowly. But the worst part is the create a track mode. While the mode is a great idea and makes sense in the whole Carrera setting, in the game it sucks so hard. You always put one piece of track after the other and you need to shift with L and R through different pieces that change based on the piece before. The problem is aligning the last piece of your track with the start to make the lap complete. I tried multiple times and never got the parts to align. There is no autocomplete or anything like that. I cannot imagine anyone enjoying making a track with that. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Not even for the greatest Carrera fan. I don't know who the audience for that game is. Fans of Carrera most likely have a Carrera track and should rather play with that. People that are no fans of Carrera will not like the game because it sucks. So no one should play that game. I give the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Card game on the original Game Boy. This game with the at the same time clear and unclear title was developed by Marionette and released exclusively in Japan in 1990. In this early Game Boy game you can play 3 different card games: 5-card draw poker, blackjack and page 1. Additionally, you can let the game tell you your future. We will do that on later. I am very happy with the presentation. It is an early Game Boy game, but all the important information is all the time visible, and that while keeping the screen clear. The cards are easy to see, and in page 1 you can see the direction, the multiplayer to draw hand cards, and the wish towards the suit should change. There's even background music during playing, not even all Game Boy Advance games have that. I think the presentation is doing nothing too special, but a very solid job. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you expect. The card games were good and you have a high score showing your winnings. The game even comes with a 2-player hot seat mode. As the score cannot be saved. Only thing that was hard to figure out was how to save page 1 before playing the second to last card in page 1. It is by holding the select button while playing the card. If you don't do that, you need to draw 3 more cards again. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Before we get to the important question, let's see my fortune. Okay, I have poor health, high money, poor strength, and good knowledge, and my color to wear is green. In total, my fortune is sad man. At least I got high money. I knew that channel will be a success. Thank you, Card Game, for proving it. If you want to see your own fortune, write in the comment and I'll add Card Game also to your fortune. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? I guess. If you want to play poker, blackjack or page 1 on the Game Boy, then sure, there's a well-made version of that. But it is exactly that. Not more, not less. I give the game 3 out of 5 points. GB Genjin 2, also known in the US as Bonk's Revenge, and BC Kid 2 in Europe on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Red Company and released 1994 with different titles in Japan, the US and in Europe. The game has extra colors on the Super Game Boy, and that's also the version you see in this review. It is a sequel to GB Genjin 1, Bonk's Adventure, or BC Kid 1, depending on the region. Apparently the world's split in half and it is for you to save the world, I guess. Besides the intro and the outro, there's literally no story. You play Bonk, a caveman baby that uses his head to defeat enemies. He can run, jump, headbutt, climb and crawl. If Bonk eats meat, he transforms randomly into one out of 3 versions. Master Bonk, who can jump further, Monster Bonk, who can defeat enemies easier, and Stealth Bonk, who can break into doors to get different boni. There are 6 levels, and in every level there are multiple smaller screens and at least one boss. The last level is a boss gauntlet against all other 5 bosses and the end boss. The presentation of the game is really good. The sprites have great humor and the graphics in total are well made. I like the animations, like the crawling animation, and that Bonk can change its appearance based on the meat. The music is okay. That the UI has that cave look to it, and that little Bonk sprite when you press pause shows that the game was made with an eye for details. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is really fun, and the controls work good. I always felt in control of Bonk during my playthrough. The lack of a story is a little problem, because you go from one level to the other and suddenly you're underwater or in a cave or on a train, but you have no idea why. I like that they put a lot of variety in the levels, but sometimes it felt like the levels are not using the mechanics very well. The most levels are very easy, and while they have settings like underwater or in space, which change the physics a bit, the game never really felt different to play. The same problems exist with the upgrades. Because it is random which one you get, the levels never use their abilities much. The bosses are mostly beaten by spamming the attack, and it is a bit disappointing that the final level is a boss gauntlet of the previous bosses. In such a short game, it took me around 1 hour to finish it, I don't need to see the same bosses twice. The last level is also the most difficult, because you will run someone out of lives. And after that you start near at the beginning of the level. Besides the problems, the game is a fun playthrough. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun short playthrough and worth the hour it takes. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Contra Spirits, also known as Contra the Alien Wars in the US and Probotector 2 in the EU, on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Factor 5 as a port of the SNES version and released in 1994 in the US and Japan and in 1995 in the EU. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added a few colors and better sound. Aliens attacked the Earth and now it's time for revenge. The game is a run and gun. You run, jump, climb and crawl around while shooting everything that moves. To do that there are different weapons like a flamethrower or a shotgun that you pick up as upgrades. Every second level is from a top-down view. There are 5 levels in total, each with a boss at the end, and the game is saved via password system. The game looks good. I like the enemy designs, especially the bosses. For the scope of the Game Boy, the bosses look quite epic. The player sprite is looking good too, and it always feels like a lot is going on the screen. To allow that amount of sprites, the sprite flicker if a lot is going on. The background on the first stage with the broken city looks nice, but in the later stages the background was sometimes just plain white. The music is good and there are multiple tracks. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game is hard. Already in the first level I died off and needed to hit continue multiple times. At the same time you always feel in control of the character, so you don't have the feeling that the game's unfair. The running, jumping and shooting feels good and the game doesn't lag even if a lot is going on. The top-down stages were a bit boring, and the objectives in both of them are the same. Find some things and destroy them. At least you get directions where the things are. I'm very impressed with the controls. They are the most important thing in such a run and gun game, and they managed to get them done perfectly. Sadly, the game is with 5 levels, 2 of them top-down. A bit short. Only the high difficulty makes it feel longer. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Just if you like run and gun games. The game is very well made and fun to play, but just if you like the genre. If you don't, you will easily get frustrated by the high difficulty. The game is easier than its SNES counterpart, but that doesn't make it easy. Groove Adventure Rave. Hikari to Yami no Daikessen on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by KCEJ and released 2002 exclusively in Japan. The game is a platform fighter and based on the manga Rave Master or The Groove Adventure Rave. This game does a lot of things different than other fighters. It is more like a platform fighter with more free movement. You can do normal attacks, a double jump and special attacks. The HP bars of the fighters, 2 or 4 fighters are in one fight, are linked to each other. If one player makes damage, his part of the HP bar grows and the part of the other player gets smaller. When a certain size of HP bar is reached, the player is flashing and can do a special move. After succeeding in a button mash minigame against the other players, that player wins. If you get hit in a match, you can lose your item. If you lose the item, you need to pick it up again, or you cannot do special moves and the game finishing move. The opponent cannot pick your item up, but can move it around without attacks. The game looks fine, but nothing special. There are 8 stages. They look good, but are a bit boring. In such a platform fighter, the stage is a big part of the game and should have been more interesting. The stages are also still images. Nothing happens in them during the fight. The intro and the menu are quite boring too, and the finishing cutscenes all look similar. While the game doesn't look bad, it also feels to impress in any way. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay has a lot of unique system, especially that you can lose your item to do the special moves and that the opponent can keep you away from it is very cool. I'm not a big fan of that button mashing minigame to finish the match. That gets old pretty quickly. What I miss during the gameplay is everything beyond the basics. The stages don't do anything, there are no items, and the possibilities to combo are not big. You have one basic combo, and besides that, the only combo starter I found was punching someone in the air and hit him once or twice in the air. I give the gameplay 2.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is doing nothing bad, it works and it has some nice ideas. Sadly, the game is also not doing anything very good. I never had real fun, so I don't see any reason to play that game. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Atlantis, The Lost Empire on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Eurocom and released in Europe and North America in 2001. The game is based on the Disney movie Atlantis. It's a puzzle jump and run game in which you run, jump, swim and climb through 10 levels. At Radius you can change between different characters and all characters have some unique actions they can do. Some can solve riddles, others can explode things or build a helicopter or drone. To fight, every character has a basic attack and a unique weapon that can be found in the levels. The levels follow the basic plot of the movie, but besides that there is no story. The game looks really cool. They went with the sprites for a more realistic look. Sure, a rare style on the Game Boy Color, but it is looking good and I like the sprites. Levels, including the foreground and backgrounds, are really nice too, and the music track is good. Sadly, there are not many different tracks. The enemies can sometimes look from the colors a bit too close to the ground, especially the spiders can be hard to see. The opening level screens look like they got ripped from the movie, and they just look like a pixelated mess. The UI is also very basic. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The controls are fluid, and I like that the characters can hold and climb up a ledge. The basic movement feels quite good. If you have to jump on platforms on the other hand, it can be hard to control. The basic style of the game is finding the end of the level, and change the characters from time to time to make the way free with the unique actions. That works fine. Often the problem is that the radio to change the character is just on the way to the next puzzle, and you can just change the character to one other character, so you do that because you know that's what you have to do without seeing the next puzzle. Sometimes the game is solving itself in a way. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It's a fun playthrough that doesn't take too long. The presentation of the game is very nice and the puzzles are not always so challenging, but fine. I give the game overall 3.5 out of 5 points. Sugar Sugar Rune, Hardgar Ippai Moegi Gakuen on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by OpenSesame and released exclusively in Japan in the year 2005. It is based on the manga Sugar Sugar Rune. In the game you play as a witch that competes with another witch to get the most hearts from boys. I don't know, but that's the story. It is some kind of dating game in a way. It is hard for me to describe the game. You can even create your own boys to get the hearts from. The presentation of the game is boring. Most of the game are just plain background images, manga characters telling you something. There are not many animations, and the ones that are there are not very good. The presentation just sucks. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay, on the other hand, sucks even more. It's translated the game to understand what is going on, and I played the game longer than anyone ever should just to see if I missed something, but no. The gameplay is decided between different rooms or streets, and there you will meet a boy and you can interact in the hope to make the boy like you more. After some time you can collect the heart of the boy, and from time to time you see a ranking who got more hearts, you or the other witch. Every half an hour there's some lazy minigame, like choosing which of the 2 boxes have more or less things in them. That's it. The only thing that is a little bit more than the absolute necessary is that you can create the boys yourself. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Really, please don't. I'm sure I'm already on some kind of watch list because I played it, but I didn't know it better. You do. I give the game overall 0.5 out of 5 points. Turrican on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys and released in the US and Europe in 1991. It is a run-and-gun game in which you shoot yourself through 10 levels killing aliens. The levels are quite big and more free-roam with different ways to go. There are multiple weapons you can use. You have a normal gun that gets upgraded with power-ups you can collect on the levels, a laser that can shoot in a 360-degree angle, and multiple special weapons. The most unique special weapon is turning yourself into a buzzsaw. The game looks okay. In the most levels you just have a plain background, also the foregrounds are mostly very basic. The player sprite is fine but nothing special. The enemies can be hard to see, they are often just like a pixelated mess. Later in the levels that play inside you have some basic but cool looking backgrounds. In total it can be difficult to see what's going on. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The gameplay has some issues. While the normal running and shooting is fine, you can just shoot up with the laser, but to activate the laser you need to press and hold shooting, and in that time you cannot move. A lot of enemies come from up and hitting them is difficult. The jumping also doesn't feel so good. The main issue here is that platforms are often directly over each other. The game is not using that you can go through them from one side kind of platform. So you have to do an awkward left-right jump. There's also no hit animation. You just lose life, but you don't really know why. The more open level design is cool, but I have the feeling that the limitations of the game gets highlighted by the design. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. It is a bit unfair to compare the game to Cobra the Alien Wars because they are 4 years apart, but they are the same genre and Cobra is just doing it so much better. The movement and controls feel more fluid there. If you want to play a run-and-gun game on the Game Boy, I would say stick with Cobra the Alien Wars. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Outstanding job, Sarge. Please stand by for further orders. HQ out.
Amiman 2 on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Digital Eclipse and released in the US and Europe in 2000. It is a sequel to Amiman 1. In this action shooting game, you control a green plastic soldier that is fighting against a tan-colored plastic army in different levels. Every level has multiple objectives that you do one after each other. In the game you can collect and use multiple weapons like assault rifles, mortars, grenades and flamethrowers. Additionally, you can go in and control vehicles like tanks and jeeps. I like the presentation of the game. In the beginning I was feeling a bit motion sick by playing the game, especially in the bootcamp tutorial mission. The screen constantly vibrates, which is annoying. After a while I overcame that feeling and since then I could appreciate the graphics. The surroundings look nice and colorful, the soldiers itself are a bit of a pixelated mess, but you quickly get used to it. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game has a very addictive gameplay. The objectives have the perfect length to keep you engaged and the new areas to discover are fun. The weapons work fine, but have some wonky qualities. For example, can you shoot with the assault rifle as soon as the old projectile exploded? That means that you can shoot very close to an enemy very fast, making it next to the flamethrower the strongest weapon. The game has a great working map, where you can see all the enemies so that you know where you need to go. Even though the most objectives are just killing all enemy soldiers, it is really fun. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. Even though I didn't expect it in the beginning, that game is fun. Play it, you won't regret that short playthrough. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points.
Elemental Gelade, Tozasareshi.
On the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Jupiter and released 2005 exclusively in Japan. It is a JRPG based on the manga Elemental Gelade. In the game, you go with your party of 5 from one place to the other over the world map and fight against everything that attacks you. The game uses a special fighting system. In every turn you have 5 faces of seemingly random of your party members on the bottom that you can use to attack. You can combine them to make different attacks or even fuse with each other. The world map of the game is a little bit lame, and the game is full of dialogue that just happens in front of still image. At least you can see the mouses move and have different emotions during the talking. In the fights, the attack animations are not very interesting, and even combined, the animations often just get played right after each other. When fusing, there's a special anime-like cutscene. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very dialogue heavy. Between every action is so much text that you cannot skip. The fighting system is fine, but also not so interesting. I like the idea of the characters combining, but since the moves don't look so interesting, it is not so much fun. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I didn't see what makes the game stand out. If you know the anime and you can read Japanese, you might have more fun with it than I had. But get ready to read a lot. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Ultraman Chou Toushi Gekiden on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Angel and released in 1994 exclusively in Japan. The footage for this review is from the Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. In the game you jump, fly and fight as Ultramans through different levels. There are platformer levels, level where you're flying through space, and boss fights. You can do base attacks and different special moves. The game looks, especially in the Super Game Boy version, very nice. The Ultraman sprite is big and quite detailed. The level designs on the other hand are very basic. One problem is that the enemy render distance is too short. Even enemies that should be on your current screen are not always visible if you're too far away. The music is great, it's upbeat and always pushing you forward. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game is fun. The levels have some variety and never overstays their welcome. Before you get annoyed by a level, it is already over. The jumping feels a bit floaty and the fights can be won by spamming, but they're still fun. The game is with 25 minutes very short. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It got some clear issues, but it's a short and fun playthrough. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder, also known in Japan as Jurassic Park 3 Kyo Ryu ni Ai ni Iko on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Konami and released in 2001. It is based on the Jurassic Park movie series. In the game you build a dinosaur park, get as many visitors as possible and try to find and create all 140 dinosaurs. To do that, you can build different shops and restaurants, send exploring teams to find amber, and let your researchers create eggs out of the found DNA in the amber. The game looks fine. It has a cute and colorful cartoon style. The dinosaurs don't all have unique sprites, but get a sprite based on the type and size of the dinosaur. The visitors don't have many different sprites, but I think that's okay. Sadly, there are also not many different shops and restaurants or hotels, and the decoration items are also not many. So you cannot really create a unique park. The music is okay, but on repeat quickly annoying. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The game has a lot of different things to do, like managing the park, getting the DNA and creating new dinosaurs. Sadly, all these things are very one-dimensional. They are not very interesting. Especially the lack of different shops, restaurants and decorations makes the park management uninteresting because I don't have the feeling I can create something unique. The complete lack of a tutorial is also not helping the game. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, sadly not. I like park management games, but in this game I don't have the feeling I have creative freedom. The game did a lot, but nothing very good. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Disney Princess on the Game Boy Advance. The name is localized based on the native language. This game was developed by Art and released 2003 in North America and Europe. In this game you play as different Disney princesses and solve the issues they have, like taking care of dwarfs that got turned to stone in a magical forest while defending yourself with your singing voice, or cleaning the house. Every princess has multiple chapters, but the gameplay is very similar for everyone. It is in every case a 2D side-scroller in which you run around, avoid enemies and find objects. If you collect everything, you unlock a secret dancing level in which every princess collects gems while dancing in a dress. The game, a Game Boy Advance game by the way, is saved by a password system. The game actually doesn't look bad. I like the sprites of the princesses and also the basic level designs look very cool. It mostly catches the mystical fairy tale look. The music is also great and the different princesses have their own themes. The same cannot be said about the sound effects, which are always repeating and not sounding very good. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. The problem is the gameplay. It is not a very interesting game. You just go through the levels, avoiding the same few enemies the level has and collecting the objects. They are not even puzzles or anything, you just need to find them. That game design feels lazy. That the game is saved by a password and even such an unnecessary long one is insulting the player. It is a Game Boy Advance game. They keep up the insulting with their teased secret level. It is just collecting falling gemstones on the same background with all the princesses. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. The game is boring and repetitive. The Disney princesses are deserving better than that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Rodland, also known in Japan as Yusei Monogatari Rodland on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Eurocom and released 1993 in Europe and Japan. In this port of an arcade game, you play as one of 2 sisters and try to rescue your mother. All the story there is one small screen. You can walk, climb ladders and attack the enemies with your wand, slamming them against the ground. When you kill an enemy, it drops a weapon that activates directly when you pick it up. If you collect all flowers or kill all enemies in a level, you go to the next one. The game looks okay. The sprites of the 2 playable characters and also the sprites of the enemies look good. The level backgrounds are easy but look fine. The foreground in these levels have nothing special. The game has some music that is running all the time. The music can get annoying, but is in general not bad. I give the presentation 2.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is very arcade-like, and it reminded me a bit of the original Donkey Kong. You always just have one screen as a level and the objective is quickly done, which lets you continue to the next screen. Sadly, there's not much gameplay. The levels all feel very samey, and the game was not much fun. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, I don't think it's worth to play. I looked at the arcade version of the game and I think it's a good port of that. It was just not a good arcade game, or it didn't age very well. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Medarod Card Robottle on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Toushi and released in Japan in 2000. The game released in 2 versions, Kabuto and Kuwagata. Z versions are similar to the Pokemon games. The main game is the same, but there are some smaller differences in the card you start with. In the game you play the existing Medarod card game. You and the opponent each have 2 Medarods on the field with different parts like heads, arms and legs, and you have to destroy the parts of the other player's Medarod to reduce their life points. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version of the game. The game looks very Pokemon-like, and the overworld between the building doesn't have a world to run through it, but it's just a menu. During the card play, the game stream is overwhelmingly full. There's so many information that all get shown at the same time. The card graphics look a little bit boring. The music is fine. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Reviewing the gameplay is not so easy for me, because I cannot speak Japanese and there's no English translation. I translated most of the dialogue, but it was still hard for me to understand. What I can say about the gameplay is that there's a lot of text. So much text. The gameplay is very slow. I didn't have the feeling that this card game is a good choice for the Game Boy Color. Since I didn't completely understand the game, I give it the benefit of the doubt. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. If you don't understand Japanese, then don't bother. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points. Cats on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Sapphire and released in North America and Europe in 1999. In this game you take care of a virtual cat. You can feed the cat, pet it and give different toys to your cat. When you adopt the cat, you can choose the color of the fur. The cat looks fine, a bit stupid but in a good way. The animations are also fine. The background images are exactly that, images. You cannot interact with anything in the background, and some of the backgrounds don't even try to emulate a room. There's also no background music during playing. I give the presentation 1.5 out of 5 points. There is no gameplay. You can give some items to the cat, but always just one item at a time, and you can also just see one cat on their screen. There's nothing to do, and it is not interesting enough to watch to justify that. I give the gameplay 0.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. With watching that review, you had the same experience as playing it. That gives the game overall 1 out of 5 points. Tracks, also known as Totsugeki Ponkotsu Tank in Japan. Tracks was developed by HAL Laboratory and released in Europe, the US and Japan in 1991. It is a virtual scrolling shooter in which you play a tank that can go, turn, and shoot. In the main mode, you fight through 5 levels with multiple bosses each. Enemies can drop upgrades and make your weapons stronger. Next to the main mode is another mode in which you can fight against up to 3 bots in different levels. For a 1991 Game Boy game, the game is looking great. The own sprites, the enemies and the surroundings look very good. I like that the levels have destructible objects. There's also some nice music. The game even has their own intro and end of game cutscene. Not many Game Boy games did that. Some areas look a little bit pale, but all in all the level design is very nice. I give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what you would expect from a vertical scrolling shooter. You drive, mostly up, and shoot at everything you find. The upgraded weapons are nice, but mostly you don't feel so much stronger with them. The basic cannon is quite strong, especially when you're close, since the game lets you shoot again as soon as the old projectile is destroyed. The game has one big flaw. It slows down when a lot is going on. There's often a lot going on, so it slows down quite a lot, which is a shame. Besides that, the game works fine. The game is also quite short with just 5 levels, and a big part of the last level is a boss gauntlet of the previous bosses. It gives the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes. It is a short 25-minute playthrough, but a fun one. The slowdown is a shame, but besides that, the game is really good. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Super Street Basketball 2 on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by C-Lab and released in 1994 exclusively in Japan. In this review sees a Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. It is a game about street basketball in which you choose different players and play 3 vs 3 or 1 vs 1 basketball matches. Every player has different sprites and stats. There are no season or story mode, just an exhibition-like mode in which you choose your own team and the opponent's team to play against each other. When dunking, there's a special minigame in which you need to press A in the right moment to actually dunk. The game looks fine. The players all have their own sprites and look good. The coin toss animation and the dunking animation look very cool. Besides that, there is not much to see. There's just one court and just 6 sprites. The music is good but repeats quite quickly. Sometimes sprites overlap each other, which can look a bit buggy. That gives the presentation 3 out of 5 points. There's not much variety in this game. There's nothing to unlock, no story mode or even arcade mode. Just exhibition matches and that's it. That's sadly not much content. The gameplay itself feels like the available modes, a bit boring. There's not much to do. I'm happy about the dunking minigame, but besides that there's not much interesting going on. Especially the defense is boring. You can just dash a bit into the other one so that he loses the ball. Defending from that while having the ball doesn't exist. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. There's no content and the gameplay itself is not interesting. If you want to play a basketball game on the Game Boy, I would suggest the Game Boy Color game NBA Showtime NBA on NBC that we reviewed as the first game in the series. I give the game overall 2.5 out of 5 points. Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension on the original Game Boy. This game was developed by Gremlin Graphics and is a part of the Amiga home computer game. In the game you play a gremlin ninja called Zool. It is a platformer game which you run, jump and climb through different levels. The game looks okay, the sprites are easily recognizable but the backgrounds are often very pale. The graphics of the game are nothing special. The real star of the show is the song. The background music is great. I mean, it's just the one song, but that song is a banger. It feels like they built a jump and run game around that song. Mainly because of the song, I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. This game is hard and not always out of the right reasons. The game feels in the first moment fine, it's a fast-paced, Sonic-like platformer, but there are 2 big flaws. First is the attack. Sometimes I can attack and sometimes not. Maybe there are some mechanics that I don't know, but it felt unreliable and unresponsive. The second big flaw. Enemies respawn directly if you didn't see their spawn point for 1 second. That is so unbelievably annoying that it makes the game hard to play. I give the gameplay 1 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, unless you hate yourself and want to punish yourself for all the bad things you did in life. In that case, go ahead. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Beatmania GB2 Gotcha Mix on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Konami and released in 1999 exclusively in Japan. It is a rhythm game that reminded me a lot, well completely, of Guitar Hero. You hear a song, the notes come from up and you press the buttons at the right moment to play the song. I didn't know that this game principle is that old, but it makes sense. In this review you see the Super Game Boy version that added extra colors and better music. The game looks really good and the sounds are great. I like the 8-bit versions of songs. Still, the screen is clear and it is easily recognizable what to do. The screen shows on the right a few pictures, maybe from the original music videos. I'm not sure since I don't know any of the songs. I think you could have used more of the screen for the following notes and less for the pictures, but it still looks quite good. I'll give the presentation 4 out of 5 points. The game works like you would expect it to. You press the button at the right moment and that's it. The buttons always felt responsive, and there are even multiple different input modes that change the order of the buttons. The only thing missing is the rumble feature when you do something wrong, but the Game Boy Color doesn't have this feature. That gives the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, if you like a Guitar Hero-like rhythm game with Japanese rock and anime songs, then this is the game for you. It is very well made and fun. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Missile Command on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by the Code Monkeys and released in Europe and North America in 1999. It is a part of the 1980 arcade game Missile Command. In the game you defend cities from missiles by shooting your own missiles. For that you have 2 missile silos that can shoot a certain amount of rockets. In every level you defend a specific city, and if there are still buildings after 2 levels you get a little animation in the next background. The graphics of the game are not good. It's a bit hard to judge since it is part of an old Atari arcade game and it is looking like an old Atari arcade game. So in a way they did the presentation correct. But this game released 19 years later and for that it is not good enough. The backgrounds are lazy and the sprites for the houses don't even change for the different city. Everything looks bad and there's no background music and nothing. That gives the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay is fine. You shoot a missile and the explosion of your missile stays on the screen quite long and destroys every enemy missile they touch. It is an okay gameplay, but also not enough for a console that had Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. I know it is the port of an old game, and I guess that's the experience that the players that bought Missile Command wanted, but for me that is not great gameplay. There are also annoying things, like after all the missiles are gone I need to wait until the animation of all the missiles is finally over so that I can continue playing. All the levels are basically the same. A lot of problems. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. I guess it is a good port of a 1980 arcade game, but that doesn't make it worth playing. I give the game 1.5 out of 5 points. Dragon Tales, Dragon Adventures on the Game Boy Color. When I heard the title, I was expecting an epic RPG, but then I saw the box art and knew I will get a different kind of game. Feeling like a fever dream. This game was developed by Handheld Games and released 2001 exclusively in North America. It is based on the educational children's series Dragon Tales. The game makes more sense now. In the game you can play different levels that all work similar. It is a 2D platformer. You go through the levels and collect a certain amount of a specific item that the fairies tell you. There are no enemies and you can only walk, jump and crawl. And slide. There are a lot of slides. The game looks fine. The backgrounds and sprites are very colorful and have a lot of different animations for the activities you can do. The music on the other hand got some problems. There is background music, which is already a plus, but the music sometimes sounds extremely weird whenever special effects happen at the same time. The background images get repeated a bit too often. There seems to be a lot of suns in Dragonland. I give the presentation 3 out of 5 points. I think the gameplay is very boring, but I'm also not the target audience for the game. The game clearly has children as the target audience, and I think for new young players the concept works. The fairies tell you what to do, everything works fine, and the objectives get repeated a lot. So, no confusion there. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Not if you're over 8, and I assume you are, so no. I give the game overall 3 out of 5 points. The Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree on the Game Boy Advance. This game was developed by Program Ace and released 2005 exclusively in North America. The game is based on the book and TV series The Berenstain Bears. In the game you play the 3 bears, brother, sister and Fred. The game is a puzzle and in every level you got to get all the bears to the exit of the level. Every bear can do different things, like brother can push boxes, sister can jump further and Fred can use a rope to climb. The game has a weird look to it. The levels are in a very cartoony 2D style, but the player and enemy sprites are in a more realistic 3D look. I don't think it is looking very good. Especially the last boss, a bear climbing up, is looking like the bear has the wrong angle. It just runs up the air. Also no idea why he's wild and we are not. The game music is fine. It gives the presentation 2 out of 5 points. The game is a puzzle game with the most obvious puzzles existing. Whenever you need to use a certain bear, there's a sign with the face of the bear. So no need to think much. I know that I'm not the target audience for the game, but still. Even kids can do more than that. Between every character changing, you need to wait until the bear waved. That can take quite long and be annoying. Additionally, the game is saved by a password system. At least no long passwords, but still, for Game Boy Advance games that is weak. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No, nobody should play that. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.
Real Pro Yaku, Central or Pacific, League Hen on the Game Boy Color. These 2 games were developed by Natsume and are the same game just with different playable teams. They were released exclusively in Japan in 1999. In this game you're the manager of a baseball team and you try to win the league. You can let the game automatically calculate the results of the games or play them yourself. If you want to do that, bring a lot of time because baseball takes forever. If you play the game yourself you can choose how to throw the ball or how to hit the ball with cards. It is not a reaction based game, but more like a prediction based game. The game looks cute, but also very easy. The presentation is nothing special, but it has some good baseball music and when you do a home run there's a little animation, so that's something. Sadly, that's also the only thing. For such management games you don't need the best graphics, but a bit more would have been possible. I give the presentation 2 out of 5 points. Rating the gameplay was a bit hard for me out of 2 reasons. First, I don't understand Japanese, and second, I don't understand baseball. I know the basics of baseball, but not enough to make any tactical decisions, so I cannot really judge about how complex the game is or isn't. The manual baseball game was not my favorite, but that's all I can say about that. I didn't see any option to train the players or buy new ones. I give the gameplay 3 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? No. Maybe if you're a great Japanese League baseball fan who can also read Japanese, but besides that I wouldn't recommend it. I give the game 2.5 out of 5 points.
Shiren the Wanderer GB2, Magic Castle of the Desert on the Game Boy Color. In Japan known as Fushigi no Dungeon, Furai no Shiren GB2, Sabaku no Majo. The game is a roguelike turn-based dungeon crawler. You go through a dungeon from one level to the other, and on the way you collect items, weapons and level up. If you die in the dungeon, you lose all equipment and levels, but keep some money to buy start equipment for the next dungeon run and so on. The enemies in the dungeon all act after you, so whenever you move, attack or use an item, that counts as a turn, and then the enemies are doing their turn, which is also moving or attacking you. The game is looking great. There's a very good looking intro cutscenes. I like how the enemies look. The weapons have different little sprites in your hand. The music is great. I have nothing bad to say about the presentation. I would say that is a perfect presentation on the Game Boy Color for that kind of game. I give the presentation 5 out of 5 points. The game is in Japanese and sadly there's no translation patch. There is a community, but they're busy doing translation patches for other Shiren the Wanderer games and systems. That's a shame because the game is very text heavy and there's quite a lot of dialogue. That also makes it hard for me to judge how complex the system can get. What I saw was extremely well made. The game is even using an autosave feature, and that as a Game Boy Color game, while some Game Boy Advance games that come out years later still use a password system. I give the gameplay 4 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Only if you speak Japanese, and that's such a shame. Because this game got the highest rating yet and is incredibly well made, but sadly only released in Japan with no translation patch and being so text heavy. I still give the game overall 4.5 out of 5 points. Oriental Blue no Tengai. This game was developed by Hudson and released 2003 exclusively in Japan. In this review sees a fan-translated version of the game by RomHacking Ari. This game's on the first look a classical JRPG, but it does some interesting things. In the game you play as either a male or female character. That changes not just your sprite, but also the starting location. You get early in the game visions of a mysterious lady that you need to save. So let's go! But to where? Here's the first thing that makes the game special. After a little intro, the gates of the starting city open and you're left alone in the big world. You can go to many locations and find out what to do. The game doesn't use a classical quest system, but you've got a journal that records everything important that happened to you. Good luck. The presentation has two sides for me. On one side the game looks like a classical JRPG. I love the design of the towns and temples. The world has a Far Eastern look to it. Some cities look more Chinese, others more Japanese or Mongolian. The fights itself have that very simple look to them. Just the enemy sprites visible and not much fighting animations. It is a typical design for JRPG games, but I think it's a bit cheap. The enemy sprites look cool, but don't have any animations or anything like that. I give the presentation 3.5 out of 5 points. The gameplay is what makes the game special. While there are the typical genre problems, like annoyingly high random encounter rates of enemies, the game gives you the freedom to explore it very early on, and that's cool. If you lose story-relevant fights, you don't have to retry, but you have to deal with the consequences, like a city getting overrun with monsters. There are also systems to upgrade your weapons with different orbs, and strategies to make the auto fight more to your liking. The game is very well made. I give the gameplay 4.5 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Yes, but only for genre fans. You need to be a fan of RPGs and get a bit into the world building, running around and finding things to do. If you like that, then try the game out. I would call it a hidden gem on the Game Boy Advance. Thanks to RomHacking Ari for making that English translation, so that we can enjoy that great game too without being able to read Japanese. I give the game overall 4 out of 5 points. Quest Fantasy Challenge, also known in Europe as Holy Magic Century on the Game Boy Color. This game was developed by Imagineer and released in Europe and North America in 1999. While I was expecting with this title an RPG, it is more like an arcade game. In every level you collect different treasures and gems. Whenever you collect everything or kill all the enemies, you go to the next level, with the goal of getting the highest score possible. The levels have some starting ways, but are mostly covered with some kind of dirt. You can go through that dirt and create new ways. The enemies will use that ways that you have created and try to hunt you down. In a physics-breaking way, the treasure chests, unlike everything else, can fall down if there is a way under them, and if they fall far enough they open, revealing special items that give points and weapon upgrades. The game has a very basic look to it and exactly one background music track. At least the enemies have different sprites. I would call the presentation functional. I give the presentation 1 out of 5 points. The gameplay loop is very easy. You just run around and collect the things, trying to create little mazes to not getting hunted down by the enemies too fast. Sometimes you can lock the way with a chest or drop the chest on the enemies to destroy them. I give the gameplay 2 out of 5 points. Let's get to the important question. Would I recommend playing the game? Weirdly, yes. The game doesn't look like much and also the gameplay is nothing too special, but for like 20 minutes it's a fun game. More like a minigame than a full title, but not a bad one. I give the game overall 2 out of 5 points.